You raise a question about why Japan signed this. One is wrong economics by both US authorities and Japanese authorities. But more importantly, Japan could not resist the request by the US just because Japan was dependent on US in terms of defense.
Mr. Shirakawa, thank you for coming. This year is particularly important because it is the 40th anniversary of Japan signing that famous Plaza Accord. A lot of people say this accord led to the Japanese bubble. I still can remember it was a tremendous bubble. Just Tokyo alone, the real estate price could buy the whole United States. So why did Japan enter into such an accord 40 years ago?
As for your question, Japan signed Plaza Accord mainly because growing trade friction with the United States. The surplus on trade account was big, and there was a growing protectionist movement in the United States. Therefore, US asked the appreciation of currencies of surplus countries, including Japan and West Germany. And also they demanded to increase domestic demand by accommodative macroeconomic policy. As for exchange rate appreciation itself, it is understandable on the back of those underlying trends. But the biggest problem with Plaza Accord is Japan committed to increase domestic demand in order to reduce surplus on current account. But this surplus is fundamentally reflecting saving and investment gap, which is determined by demographics and technology. And this is not something which can be changed by macroeconomic policy. If Japan committed to such impossible thing, then that means Japan should continue to deploy very accommodative monetary policy. And why you raise a question about why Japan signed this? For several reasons. One is wrong economics by both US authorities and Japanese authorities. But more importantly, Japan could not resist the request by the US just because Japan was dependent on US in terms of defense. That's my reading.
So the United States wanted Japan to increase import, to increase the demand for American goods. So what did Japan do?
First of all, US demanded Japan to relax the various measures which could have some impact on curtailing export from Japan to the United States. And also, US demanded Japan to open domestic market to US manufacturers.
Oh, okay.
And American cars were not sold much in Japan. But actually, foreign cars were sold much in Japan, but it is basically European cars. And they compared with American cars, European cars are more compact, and so European automakers were very good at adjusting their product to Japanese market, while US automakers are not so good at them. But nonetheless, we are under such pressure. But coming back to your question, the surplus, the view from the United States, deficit did not become small. Because, as I said, basic balance is reflecting saving and investment gap, which could not be solved by macroeconomic policy.
So what a particular mechanism that Plaza Accord will drive Japan's economy to such a bubble?
Plaza Accord itself doesn't have the mechanism to create bubble itself. The prolonged monetary easing, which was influenced by signing Plaza Accord, was a cause of one of the cause of bubble, because the borrowing in those days people were so optimistic about the future. Real estate price is rising, and many companies are engaged with investment in real estate.
Okay.
And financing cost is very cheap because of prolonged monetary easing. So they become more and more optimistic. So that was how bubble was created. I often hear the argument by Chinese people. Plaza Accord was a mistake of Japan in the sense that it created bubble. But as I said, that is not necessarily correct. The yen's appreciation itself is not a problem. It is understandable on the back of surplus on trade account. But the problem is prolonged monetary easing. So
that's a central bank.
Yeah. And so that is the lessons which Chinese people should learn from the Japanese experience.